How are y'all doing today? I need way more energy than that to start the day. It is way too early. School has not started yet, so my body is not in the spirit. How are y'all doing today? Good. Yeah, that feels so much better. My name is Fable.
I'm Rachel.
And two of us are teaching artists with a nonprofit organization called the Diatribe. And one of us is a former student within our organization, the Diatribe. We go around to different schools and we do after-school programs, assemblies, as well as workshops, talking about our lived experiences in a way that hopefully students find relatable and are encouraged to talk about their own lived experiences. We're going to talk a little bit about some stories. We're going to share some poems. And really what we want this talk to do is hopefully inspire you to see the importance in storytelling. A lot of times, one thing that a lot of people talk about in education is the importance of representation. And that's one thing that our organization thrives on. There are a lot of schools where, of course, the educators don't look like a lot of the students. Where a lot of the students don't find comfort in talking about their lived experiences with their educators because they feel like they'll never relate. But one thing that I feel like I truly believe in my heart is that a lot of you all, a lot of our educators and a lot of our administrators can actually relate to students in a lot of ways that they'll never know, because a lot of the students don't know your lived experience. And that's one thing that our organization thrives on, is getting you to share your story and getting our students to share their story as well. The way that we start every single program in every single school is we do an assembly. This assembly is a sharing of stories, a sharing of poems, and then we also turn every school into like a mini concert series. We bring some of the best talented hip-hop artists and singer-songwriters in the city to light up these rooms. But one of the stories that you'll hear in these schools is mine. I'm somebody who has a very different story than a lot of the other educators in our group, but all of our educators have very valuable, unique, diverse stories. I grew up on the east side of the state. I grew up in a single-parent household where my mom worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. And unfortunately, around age 10, my stepfather came into the picture. He was somebody who liked drinking a little bit too much. Whenever he would partake, he'd always like to put his hands on me. I'm one of those kids that a lot of you all have in your schools that got suspended far too much. I was that kid that always lived in in-school suspension and had way too many visits to out-of-school suspension to where I almost didn't graduate. I was that kid that liked fighting everywhere. I liked fighting on the playground. I liked fighting in the gym. I liked fighting in the lunchroom. I liked fighting in the basketball courts. I liked fighting anywhere I could fight, because putting my hands on someone or something actually made me feel like I could defend myself for once, because at home I didn't feel that I had the courtesy to be able to do so. But it was my senior year in high school where an incredible educator pulled me to the side and said, "Marcel, I don't want you to fail, so I'll make you a deal." She told me that if I turned in a piece of creative writing every day, that she would pass me. So it started off as short stories. It started off as little nothings. And then it grew to kind of like lyrics and hip hop. And she pulled me aside and said, "Marcel, you know that Tupac was a poet, right?" And I was like, "Lady, you don't know what you're talking about." She did not look like me. I did not want to listen to a word that she had to say. But she gave me a book of poems from Tupac Shakur. And it changed my life forever. Every day I started to turn in poems. I was like, well, if Tupac can be a poet, I can be a poet, right? She sent me to an after-school experience, the King Chavez Parks program, where I got to learn from all these different poets that taught me poetry could be anything that I wanted it to be. It could sound any way that I wanted it to sound. So I fell in love with it. And I started talking about my lived experience. And for the first time, I started talking about what I was going through at home. It helped me to become an individual who could talk about my traumatic experiences and the things that I went through. And later in life, when I started using the same methods to cope that my family always did, drinking, and violence and falling into substance abuses, it was the thing that helped me be able to talk about the harm that I've caused, as well as the harm that I've experienced and the ripples effect that's made. But after every artist always shares their stories and their experiences, sometimes you'll be lucky enough to hear a poem. And if you're really lucky, it might sound a little something like this.
So I'm going to share a poem with you guys. This is called The Other Side of Jericho. I grew up in church, so a lot of that imagery ends up in my poems, but I often share this in schools and at assemblies Because for me, this poem is about finding your voice and using your voice to tear the walls down in your life. For a long time, I grew up feeling very voiceless. And I know a lot of young people can often feel that way, that they're not seen or heard, whether that's in their homes or in their schools. So that's what poetry has done for me, and that's why I like to share this piece. It's called The Other Side of Jericho. The human brain is a machine, a complex network, a starlit series of intricate compartments interconnected by superhighway synapses, my gray matter mechanism, fold upon fold of intellectual potential, flickering like the light of a lingering ghost, asserting its unrelenting presence. And there is a myth that we only use 10% of our full brain capacity, but that isn't true. And if you ask me, that's just an excuse for apathy, and maybe that's why everybody laughs at me, because I use humor as a defense mechanism. Because we all fall short, but at least I know my place in this organism. I know that life is chaos, is ridiculous beauty. I know that mutation creates diversity, that consciousness is random, is fractal absurdity, and I want to laugh. I want to laugh like Sarah laughed when the angel told her that her 90-year-old womb bore life. I want to howl with laughter until I weep in gratitude for my ability to be, to think, to analyze, to speak, because my brain is a miracle machine and I am an inadequate vessel, struggling to seize what has been laid before me, endless possibilities, because we all fall short, and still I regret nothing. Not a single wasted moment, because I chose it, and all time is now, is future, and is history, is constantly rising and setting, the hot sun burning my back as I wander, the hot sand burning the bottoms of my bare feet, and I would wander through this desert for another 40 years, as long as it brought me to my promise, as long as it brought me to my knees and back to my burning, bleeding feet on the other side of Jericho from my dream. And I want to scream. I want to scream like Joshua screamed. I want to be red-faced and holy. I want to scream until my voice becomes a howl no human ear can hear. I want to scream until the walls I have built, unimaginably high, inconceivably thick, that mortar and brick begins to crumble and split by the force of my sound. I want to scream like Joshua screamed. I want to be that desperate and unleashed. I want to scream against everything that separates me from me. I want to scream until heaven has no choice but to answer, because I want what was promised to me. I want to scream until inactive synapses begin to crackle and finally to fire, because human will is physical, is palpable, and anything is possible, because mountains are made of the same grain as mustard seeds, because the God in us can bury great cities under even greater seas, because all time is now, is future, and is history, and we are all a part of this ridiculous reality, and the breath in my lungs is the same cosmic wind that brought this world to be, and it is finally time to awaken the God that sleeps in the deepest part of me.
And after you have 4 different artists from 4 different backgrounds and 4 different experiences share their stories, the reason they write, the things that they've gone through that they feel like they now have the courage to talk about, and after they share their poems, you then hear an exercise. Now I want you to picture that you're in an auditorium filled with students, and that you have teachers lined along the sides making sure that people aren't talking, as educators always do. And we have our educators participate in this as well. So what I want everybody to do, just real quick, we're going to breeze through this. Close your eyes and lower your heads. Everybody, eyes closed, heads down, eyes closed, heads down. Everybody in the room, eyes closed, heads down. We're going to ask you a series of questions. We want you to put up a finger for every question that aligns with you. You can add multiple fingers if multiple questions do. If finances ever brought stress into your household, I want you to put up 1 finger.
If in your childhood or adult life you have experienced abuse of any kind, put another finger in the air.
If you have ever struggled with your mental health, I want you to put up a finger.
If you have struggled with your identity or coming out, being part of the LGBTQ community, put another finger in the air.
If you've ever been diagnosed with anxiety, bipolar, depression, ADHD, or any other sort of stressor, I want you to put another finger in the air.
If you were bullied in school, put another finger in the air.
If you are currently suffering grief or loss of a loved one or family member, put up another finger.
If there was a time where you found yourself being a bully, put another finger in the air.
If you are currently scared of what you see in the media and what the future holds for us, put up another finger. And now what I want you all to do is put these hands high, open your eyes, and look around the room. One thing that a lot of our educators see, that a lot of our students see, is they look around, they see people that they don't know, that have up just as many fingers as they do. Sometimes they look across the room and they see the person who was talking down to them or bullying them with just as many fingers they have. Sometimes you have the person who is the bully, unfortunately, looking across the room, seeing the person that they pick on having up just as many fingers as them. Currently in society, we're at a very divisive point. But one thing that I feel like can truly bring us together in our education system as well as our society as a whole is getting people to unpack and tell their stories so they can find those relatable experiences that they have with their neighbors. Now, after we do these assemblies, we have 6, 9, or 12 weeks of programming where we work with these young people, each week dissecting different social issues. Sometimes this is in place of the school's poetry unit, sometimes it's an after-school program, but occasionally you have a dynamic young person that continues to grow and flower and blossom, as you do with Danielle of Orchard View High School. So everybody please, real quick, put your hands together for Danielle.
So I have a poem for you today, and this one's sort of about struggling with mental health, growing up in like a split household, and how I sort of changed my view of myself over time. So, daylight pours in from my bedroom. Not a single lamp to fill the shadows it created, but for my demons, this is convenient. The dark shields them as they emerge from every crack in my wood paneling, somehow exposing their claws as they latch onto me, feeding me the memories of a darker time, a time when they were familiar and loved. Suddenly, I am mine again. I feel the cold of the wood floor beneath my knees, and in my hand, the plastic body of my favorite dog. I hear the clinking of my dog's collar as he trots through the house. I hear the echo of my dad's voice as he shouts at the same game he's been playing for hours, and the light isn't on. The afternoon sun seeps through my open window, somehow exposing this deep hole in my chest. I am not home. I'm a little girl with bright blonde hair, carrying out fantasies through this plastic vessel, wishing to be older but not wanting to fast forward, unaware of the pain that she faces. Trying to survive in a broken family, she's pulled back and forth, believe me, they demand. Love me, they demand, but how is she supposed to believe one when neither will tell her the truth? How is she supposed to trust one when neither will show her enough love, although love is in the constitution of the state of this relationship? There was never a law passed that enforced it. She developed a strategy later on of becoming self-sufficient. When no one was there to tell her to go to bed, she made her own bedtime. When no one was there to give her a routine, she made her own. When no one was there to tell her to clean her room, she cleaned it herself exactly the way that she wanted it. When no one was there to ground her, she punished herself. When she felt she had to follow her routine in order to survive because it's the only thing that's kept her sane this long, everyone saw her as selfish, and so she believed them. Most days you could find her sprawled out on her floor, a lifeless creature weighed down by guilt and a sickening numbness without any lights on. Only the sunlight to remind onlookers that life still exists here. It's hidden, but it's here. It is not time to close the curtains yet. I just wanted to be perfect. To be good enough so that someone would say that they were proud of me, even if no one was there to make a single sound. Taught myself that if I am not perfect, I am not worthy of self-love or any love at all. I thought that was called being humble, and I felt I wasn't punished enough. Question, how could something so monstrous not be locked up in a cage? I used razors to draw the metal bars against my skin. I spent hours in isolation, drawing myself with a pencil made out of my mistakes until, through my tear-stained vision, saw a creature with fangs, horns, and wings staring back at me, and she looked all too familiar. I would bring pills to my lips, count them out on my red-ordained thighs, calculate the perfect place to wrap a rope around my neck and jump, but monsters don't come out in daylight. You can't die when there's still sunlight. Wait until the night when hope rests with the sun and the world is fast asleep. But how selfish, how inhumane it would be to disrupt their peace. Darling, sleep. Turn on every light, shut the blinds, forgive yourself and sleep. Drown out their claims of evil with your tears of relief and sleep. Sleep until the morning comes and hope rises with the sun. Over the years, I've learned to love the broken bits of me, the imperfections. I've learned to forgive and grow instead of letting myself crumble. But on afternoons like this, when the light isn't on and the daylight pours in through my bedroom window, I am reminded to be humble. I am reminded that hating myself once was the only option, and I feel myself grow tired. And so, I sleep.
The way that every program ends in every school is that we do a huge assembly where it's the students that then perform for their entire school. And it's truly, truly, truly remarkable. We really hope that your takeaway more than anything is that you encourage students to continue to tell their stories, and we hope that you all share your stories with your students, because that's one thing that's going to continue to knock down walls. on your way out, if you could please take a brochure or a sticker and be in touch. Come listen to some of these amazing students. We have a lot of events where you can listen to these dynamic young people and continue to empower them and encourage them to share their stories. You all have an incredible day.